tuning into the Conversation C4. I'm Nikki.
Tasha.
Joyce.
Deborah.
Welcome to the show. With each show, we're going to bring you what we always bring you, the 4 C's. Converse, cultivate, challenge, and hopefully some change come about in that. So we're excited to be here, so let's just jump right into our topic today, which is boundaries. So Deb, take it away. What are boundaries?
Boundaries are there are limits or safeguards that we put in place to define our own personal limits. It's like rules or limits or safe ways for others that we have put around us that we want others, how we want others to behave or act or treat us. Mm-hmm. You know, we are the ones that allow people into our space and allow them to do whatever they want to do or say or whatever. Right. You know, so it's just putting things in place. And like Joyce said about no, she didn't say it, but as we talked earlier, we talked earlier about boundaries, and she was talking about no, saying no, and I was saying, you know, I think no is a very anointed word. Mm-hmm. It's not a negative word. Mm-hmm. Saying no if that's not something if that's outside of the boundaries that you have at that time or that season, because there's seasonal boundaries.
Yes,
and that's Matthew 5:37. Let your yes be yes and your no be no.
Yes.
No be no.
Yes.
Right.
So no is you know a legitimate boundary.
Yeah.
But most of us in boundaries, we have a tendency to say yes too often, when we should be saying no.
Mm-hmm. Or we say no too often when we should be saying yes.
Because of fear. Sometimes we don't want to enter and think things we're afraid, so we don't go, and we'll set up a boundary, and many of us set up false boundaries. We shouldn't, and because we're afraid. Lord opens the door for you to do something, and instead of you moving through, you'll say no, or you'll find excuses. And when you're dealing with people, especially in the church, especially in the church, it's hard to say no, and you know you can't do something. You know you must juggle your time or put someone else on hold because someone in the church asked you to do something, when you should have said respectfully, I can't do it. I'm not available for that.
And I think also as Christians, I think one of the bigger things that we deal with is feeling two things. One, we feel pressure, and two, we feel like we got to make these quick decisions.
Right.
And so people want a yes right then and there, but maybe you don't have a yes right then and there. Maybe you need to check your schedule, consult somebody else, you know, your family or whatever. And I think we got to be okay with knowing that we don't have to move by other people's emergencies. Right. You know what I mean?
True.
And so even having that boundary within yourself to not allow yourself to be pressured that way. Right. You know?
Well, they say, you know, God will want you to do that. Or, you know, that's something I see, that's your gift. Right. That's part of your gift. You know, so you start like, oh, you know,
so they're trying to manipulate you into doing what they want you to do.
And I don't think intentionally.
No, I'm not saying
I don't think it's even an intentional manipulation. I just think sometimes people just see they want this for you to do now, and they haven't really asked you like, what season are you in? What's going on? Let's you know, talk to me. You know, where are you at right now? You know, and a lot of people don't do that. So therefore, then
which is why you need your boundaries.
Right.
You got to be able to teach people how to address you. How to
I like that. I say that again, Nikki.
How to teach you. You do. You have to teach people how to treat you.
Right. And I think it's a form of protection. You know, so I think of the shepherd and the sheep. Mm-hmm. And so there's pasture that is out for the sheep to roam and to go and wander about. But there's also a gate around them and around that pasture, and the shepherd keeps them in that space together. So when you think about it, it's all about self-care. Mm-hmm. It's all about knowing who you are and identifying your own self-value and worth. But it's also a form of protection, you know. And when you think of the shepherd is there to keep that flock together, but to also have that guard up to make sure that he sees what's coming, what's happening, and how to make sure that the sheep are not taken away or not lost. Yeah. And so when you think of boundaries, you can think of it as ways to protect yourself, to keep you from losing yourself, to keep you from being in the space where you wander away from God's will, or that you're even hurt, you know, or you lose your sense of self because you're outside of your boundaries.
Mm-hmm. And let me, and I was talking to them earlier today because I I try not to say often, God showed me, God said, because, I ain't trying to make God no liar, because he ain't no liar. I'm no liar if I say, he said something. But I'm telling you, today he literally told me, first took me to Matthew 4:2-11, when Christ was tempted, and how the enemy came with all his, he wasn't coming with no, it wasn't stuff that was just like, oh, that's far left, that's no.
Subtle.
Yeah, it was just that, bringing the word, bringing the word. But but Christ knew his purpose.
Yes.
And pressure can't conquer purpose.
Right.
And so we have to know our purpose. And that will give us that gauge where we are narrowly thinking about what we're supposed to be doing, when we're supposed to be doing it. And it'll make it easier to kind of set those boundaries for yourself.
And even who we should be doing it with.
Exactly.
Right.
And that's the key.
Right.
Knowing
even
the
how
connection.
we came together.
Yes.
Look up on our website how we even came together.
Yeah.
I mean, we had to know our calling. We had to know that our gifts complement one another, and we had to know the boundaries of what we could and could not do at this particular time.
Yep.
Right. And even limitations. Sometimes good things are not always God things.
That's right.
And
True.
so
Right.
you put boundaries in place to help you identify those things quickly. And to stay within God's grace and will. When you function outside of your boundaries, things start to happen. It becomes chaotic, overwhelming. You fall out of walking in the spirit. You start walking in the flesh. You're dealing with people, and instead of you having patience or the fruits of the spirit, you run into the fruits of the flesh, and you begin to act out on your own, and it goes from being a good thing to not a good thing because God's not in it, and so that's why we have to definitely know what our own personal boundaries are, and know what is right for us, and first we have to know who we are in Christ in order to even say, I need to put some boundaries in place.
Yes, because I get frustrated, and they know that, with time. I have boundaries over my time, because my time is precious to me. And sometimes, and I have to get out of that part, and sometimes I think people are like, okay, they don't have that care about my time as I do. And I know they do, but I don't sense that, and so then that frustrates me.
And we all got that something.
Triggers.
But exactly. Triggers, good word. Because we have to, I think as believers especially, I think we're very guilty of not giving in to what we're really feeling. I think we almost like we're supposed to be emotionless robots.
Right.
Christ didn't make us emotionless robots. You know what I mean? We have emotions, whether they're negative or positive, but it's what you do with them, that really defines who you are as a Christian. So,
and me, I have to just get quiet. And since I'm not a quiet person, people will think, oh, something wrong, you're quiet. And me, I have to get quiet and process my words now and process my actions. So that's a boundary I have when I get frustrated. Is my boundary that I have to put around myself is that I have to get quiet. I have to step back. And that's why I say slow to speak and quick to listen. I have to step back. So that's a boundary that I have when I get frustrated.
Okay. And one of the scriptures I like is Psalm 16.
Yes, Psalm 16, right.
And he says God is our portion.
16, Psalm 16, 5-9.
Yeah. I mean, but just that part right there, God is my portion.
Yes.
If we just remember that, and we won't take on so much.
Right.
And we won't feel overwhelmed. Because let me tell you this, when you feel pressured and you feel overwhelmed and you're doing this, your peace is gone. It's out the window. You ain't got no kind of contentment. You just like all over the place.
Yes.
And you allowed it. You allowed yourself to become burdened and overwhelmed and stretched because you did not say no usually. Or yes, in some cases. You didn't set the boundary. So now you're the one running around and accident prone or whatever because now I'm overwhelmed. I've done too much. And now I promised this one this and I promised that one that. And now you're just running around and getting nothing done and probably neglecting what you should be doing, number one, neglecting your family or neglecting yourself because you just overextended.
Right.
So what's some challenges we can probably give for people to challenge themselves on setting their own boundaries.
Yes.
And how
Yes.
to, and even how to communicate your boundaries to other people.
I think one of the things that helped me, because I was a yes person, and I guess it came from low self-esteem and a lot of other things that were going on. But I found that once I learned what my giftedness was, how God individually gifted me, and what ministries my gifts belong to, it helped me not only in the church but outside of the church. I can respectfully say no to anyone if it doesn't fit into what God has caused me to do, and then I'll make myself a little checklist. It is, first of all, if you ask me to do something, before I make a decision, I'll get back with you. There's no immediate, unless it's an emergency going on, someone's bleeding, you don't have to do anything right this minute, like you said earlier. So first, I'll get back with you. I go home and I pray on it. I'm married. I talk to my husband. Do I have this kind of time to do whatever it is? That's next. Then while I'm waiting for an answer, I go into prayer. I worship. I study my scriptures. I may even have to fast if I'm led to do so, depending on what I'm being asked to do. And once I get the answer, yay or nay, then I go back and give the answer. That gives so much power and freedom in anything that you do. And now I know that God is saying yes. So now if I move something aside for this task, I know it's okay because God has let me know I can do it. And He will show me how to organize my life so that I can do this task, whatever it is. And I'm only talking about tasks, but sometimes it's a little more than a task.
But sometimes if you just have something to do, somebody say, can you do this tomorrow? We don't have time to do all the steps that you just did. So that's why we need, even if it's something they say, can you do this tomorrow? I need for you to run and do this tomorrow.
It depends on what it is.
Right. So that's why we need to be able to say, we need to be able to know our time. Be able to say, you know what, I may have 5 minutes, or give them I may have 15 minutes to give to this, or I may have 30 minutes to give to this, that you can set limitations.
I've done that before.
So-
That didn't work.
So Deb, let's talk about change, or even identifying, what boundaries should be put in place, or what we need to do to know if we have boundaries.
Well, to know if you have boundaries is to see how frustrating and things like that you're getting,
Yes.
what kind of peace you have with certain situations that's coming up. So if you know that you are getting anxious or frustrated all the time when somebody's asking you to do something, or when you're doing something, if you don't have any peace about it, if you smile, being a people pleaser, when you smile when they say okay, and you say okay, and then when you get home you're complaining, oh, I can't believe I gotta do this. So if all those things you're doing, then your boundaries are not set. You do not have correct, healthy boundaries. You have unhealthy action and reaction to things. So you need to establish what healthy boundaries is. Actually read a book. Look online. Look in the Word. What is boundaries? Because in Psalm 16:5-9 says, "The Lord is my chosen portion and my cup. The lines have fallen for me in pleasant places." So if your places aren't pleasant, then your boundaries are skewed. So you're being either a people pleaser, so you need to work on some things. There's some things that you need to examine, so you can set some absolutes. I absolutely know that I need to do this before I can say yes or no.
And if you need a little help, one of the books that I read when I was studying is called Boundaries, and it's by Dr. Henry Cloud and Dr. John Townsend. The book has been reprinted, and there's a workbook, and there's so much information, and it
We've all had that book.
it helps you identify. I am stressed. I'm overwhelmed. And you see where you have not set boundaries, and before you just didn't see it. That brings it to light, and you know, okay, now I need to start working on these areas to actually put myself out of this stress and this madness.
And surrender it to the Lord.
That's true.
Lord, what is this? Why do I feel like this? And they ask me to do this. Why do I feel? What is in me that always have me say yes and running here and there and complaining about it later. What is it? Because there's something in you that's not met, an unmet need, or something that you're trying to please somebody about. There's something there that needs to be worked on.
I know I was a people pleaser.
It's not that person, because we always say, "Oh, I can't believe they asked me to do that again," and I'm not,
it's you.
But when you set your boundaries, you are you're allowing yourself to be in control of your life. You know, and so when you think about praying and preparing, you know, we'll talk about that later as to how you can get prepared for boundaries or even making a decision. One of the key things is planning. You need to have a plan before you you know, go out on your day or go out into the world. And what I mean by that is sometimes we'll get asked to do things, or whether it's at work or at church, or serving, volunteering, whatever it may be, we get asked questions or favors, or people come to us and say, "Hey, can you do this?" And what we need to know is, what does my life look like before I leave out the house? What is my plan, or what free time do I have to give to others, based on the boundaries that I've already established before I even go out and leave out the door? There are times where people may come up to you and say, "Hey, at work, can you take on this additional project?" Well, if you are not organized, if you have not thought about what your life looks like and assess that and put boundaries into place, you may be quick to say yes, and you have 3 other projects that are due around that same time, but because you wanted to please someone, or because you just don't know how to say no, or you don't have boundaries in place, you take it on, and then you become frustrated or even overwhelmed, or you don't do that project well because you got 4 other things going on. So boundaries are put there, number one, to protect us, to make sure that we keep first things first. If I'm missing out on spending time with God because I'm doing all these other things I said yes to, now it's over because God is not in it. But really being able to understand that planning is key in preparing your boundaries beforehand. Yes, you need to pray. Yes, you need to seek the Lord. But really knowing that you should have those set in place before you step out of your house, or even into your workplace or the church or wherever you volunteer or serve.
And remember, you can't change anyone but you.
Yes.
But you know something, I was just thinking, we do set boundaries in other areas.
Yes.
If we have a car, we don't let people come get our kids, just take our car. Do we lock our doors at night?
Yes.
That is a boundary.
Yes.
You set boundaries in other areas all day, except when it comes one-on-one or with the group. Now all of a sudden you just throw all your principles out the window. You give your car keys away and just let anyone drive it. You don't lock your door. You just leave it wide open so anyone can come in. Think about it that way.
Yes.
And I think you touched on something real powerful, actually, you and Deb, because you said that boundaries it's a fear. And I think people have a fear of just communicating to somebody, whatever it may be. You know what I mean? It just be a fear of, I don't want to disappoint them, or I don't want them to feel like I'm not, you know, really, or feel like I'm not really, especially in the church. You see that, you feel like they gonna think I'm not, you know, really.
They're not gonna use me.
They think I'm not perfect. That's the thing.
Not even not perfect, but they may feel like I'm not a team player. I don't have the vision that they, you know, like I don't believe, I'm not supportive. You know, we have these so many fears that the enemy. Exactly.
I'm not a team player.
I volunteer. You on 50 committees, but I volunteer.
And your home falling apart. So
Yes.
you at the church.
Yes.
So
And
as a
that's
people
so bad that
Yeah.
also on the other side is that people don't see that.
Right.
You know,
Right.
that people don't see, oh, she's doing a whole lot. You know, because I've seen people where they have actually left the church because they were doing so much and they got tired.
That's escape.
And they got tired.
And they didn't know how to turn around and quit and say no.
But people have left jobs for the same reason.
Same
You know.
Left marriages.
Yes.
Yes.
And that's the point. You have to communicate.
Communication.
You have to communicate.
Yes.
You must. And it's even if it's scary, do it.
But wait a minute, if someone is a people pleaser, someone who's walking and living in fear, And how do they
That's the
start?
challenge.
Yes.
That's
That
the
is
challenge.
That's
the,
the
how
challenge.
do I start?
Yes.
That's
First,
the
you know,
challenge.
you start with prayer, but you start in one small area, something that's non-threatening to you or doesn't create
Yes.
fear in you, and you start in one area. Just say, today, I plan to do this today, and unless an emergency come up, I'm not going to deviate
Right,
from
right.
this, no matter who asks me to do what.
Yes.
I might be able
But
to
I'm a-
schedule it later.
I'm even say this, even in fear,
Even if
breathe
you're-
through it.
Yes.
I'm serious.
You're right.
Listen,
You're
you
right.
are
You're right.
talking to somebody who did not have boundaries. People
So
walk
give us
all
an
over
example.
me.
Give us
Oh
an
my
example.
God. You already
Give
know.
us
You
an
try-
example.
I had no
Love to
boundaries.
hear it.
Come on, give us
Give
an
us
example.
example.
Let me tell you,
Give me
I
an
worked
example.
at a job and it wasn't the person. I did not have boundaries. And I used to call this girl crying every 5 minutes and she's like, what are you going through over there? What? Why I just tell that? I'm like, no, because I might lose my job and I have to
Yeah,
feed
and that's
the
what we
kids.
say.
Again,
Right.
those
We're friends.
fears. But you know
Yeah.
what I had to
Right.
do? I called an SOS. I went and saw a counselor, and she gave me that book, the boundaries,
boundaries?
book.
Yep,
And it's
yes.
a plain and simple book. It is really a simple
It's
book.
very
It's
simple.
not too deep where you just
No.
like, oh, this is spiritual.
Yeah.
It ain't that
No,
deep.
it
It's
isn't.
literally practical things that you can
Yes.
do. And I read that book, and when I had the conversation with the person, he had no clue.
Right.
It was like, oh, I didn't even realize.
So it was all
but
on
it
you.
was just, but I had to
Right.
breathe
Yes.
through that fear. That's what even if you're scared, you have to breathe through
Yeah.
and say, okay, this is my first little tremble, look, knees wobbling. Okay,
They
let
got
me,
you.
let
Yes.
me talk to you.
Mhm.
You know, voice shaking, my voice was shaking. I'm like, I just wanted to say, you know, but that was where I was. Today I don't got no problem. Sometimes you gotta pull me back and say, okay, you're talking a little, you know, just be quiet. But
Even if you write it
you
out.
have to, something, but you
Something,
have to
just,
take that
yeah.
first step, even in fear. You know, do it scared. I hear that a lot. Do it scared.
So
you
now
have to.
that's our challenge to you today.
That's the challenge.
Do it
Right.
scared.
Even if you have to write it out first, just write it out.
Yeah.
Say, this is where I'm lacking my boundaries. This is, I need to talk to this person.
Yes.
And so maybe you need to write out something. Even you're not going to be able to say it verbatim.
No.
But just writing it out and hearing and seeing it on paper.
Talk it out.
And talk it
Yeah.
out.
Talk it out to
Let
yourself in the
somebody-
mirror.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Talk it out.
You-
Yeah.
And don't leave out that we need to self-assess, because I
Right.
think that is
Talk
huge.
to someone.
Yeah.
You got to sit down and really think about what is it that God's called you to do. What's your purpose, your plan, and then you work towards establishing your boundaries. You shouldn't be serving in the hospitality team on the hospitality team if you know singing is your gift. You are being pulled in the wrong place. And I'm not saying hospitality there's anything wrong with that, but what I'm saying is after you assess, is this helping me or helping me, as Joyce said earlier, walk in my purpose, fulfill the gifts that God has given me? If it's not, it may not or should not be on your plate.
Yes.
And so
yes.
really assessing all the things that you do and recognizing that it's okay to say no. And it's okay
is
to say
okay.
that is not part of the plan that God has for me.
Yes.
So I'm going to have to refrain or resist, or even it's not the season.
Or just let it pass by this time.
And getting to know what the plan is.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
what has God called you to do.
Yeah.
And that's a whole nother show of really
Yeah.
walking in your gifts and calling and actually know what, because a lot of people don't know.
That is
They'll
true.
say, I don't know what am I called to do? What am I called to do? What is your passion? What are you passionate about? What is it that you do and you love to do it?
And ask the
And you're
Lord. He
excited
said
to do
keep
it, and the
secrets.
Lord will, right?
Yeah.
He gave it to you, the Holy Spirit gave
Yeah.
you,
All you gotta do is ask.
Yes.
So-
You reveal it real quick.
right,
Yeah.
right.
So you heard from us, big time.
Yeah.
But we want to hear from you. So visit our website at ConvowithU.org, and we hope to see you again. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.